Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is open TunerCAD, and you're gonna go to the vehicle information. This will ensure that we have a good communication to the computer, and as you can see, you can tell this one, for example, is a 94, so we know what to save the file as. I like using Eehack to flash and to read. So if you're watching this video, you're probably already to the point where you have the actual bin saved, and this takes about 2 to 3 minutes to download. And this is my first video, so I'm sorry for not being able to really know how to edit and fast forward, so we're just gonna have to fast forward it yourself because I don't know how to do it. And I guess in this first video I'm just gonna show you like the very basic specifics of how to delete the VAT system, the all the emissions and stuff. Of course, this is if you're gonna put your LT1 into a race car or off-road vehicle, or um, something that doesn't require emissions. What I like about Eehack is, as you can see right here, you have the transmission section and the ECM section, like the engine section, I'm sorry. So whenever you change whatever you're gonna change on the bin, you can just flash the engine section and not do the transmission section if you didn't modify anything on the transmission. And what that does is it speeds up the process of flashing the computer, and it also you're not taking a chance on breaking the computer as well because you're not flashing both of them. So I think we have like a minute left. Once he gets done reading, it'll ask you to exit, and then you can save the file. You go to exit, and now you can save your file. I'm gonna save it in this folder. Tuning. Yes, it was a 94. There we go. So now we can get to editing. Open up TunerCAD and went to tuning. Hit modify. Here we go. Okay, so first I go to tables, ECM switch, and that's going to be where your VAT system is. You can disable that. Traction control, I always disable that. This is actually very self-explanatory. You can, you know, if you don't know what something means, you can usually Google it and it'll show you. Um, Sometimes people like to tune on speed density. So what you would do, if you scroll back up right here, um, there's the speed density mode. So if you enable that, then the mass airflow is no longer active. So you can do that. Like I said, this is it's pretty much very simple. This is just your flags. Right here you can disable the EGR, O2 sensors, air pump. So that's all of your codes. The this part is the codes, and the upper part it's the flag, so you can enable and disable stuff. Um, all the way up to here. Right here, that's where all of your codes come up. So if you disable something, you'll have to disable also the code. Actually, I don't think you do. You don't have to disable the code because it's just not going to come on. So that's the first thing, and then the constants. This is where we start getting into the actual tuning. So a lot of you guys. On cylinder volume, basically the way that this is configured, it's it's per cylinder. So right here we have it's 17.25. So the way to figure out how many what like let's say you have a 33 stroker. So I'm just gonna show you how to do it. 717, if you multiply that, let's see, 717, you multiply it by 8, it gives you 5.7, well, 5736. So let's say you have 383 stroker, which is 6.3 cube, yeah, it's like 6.3 liter. You divide it by 8, and now you have 0.787. So if that's the case, then you would change this to 0.787, and now you're telling the computer that you have a 33 stroker instead of 350 cubes. Same thing here with the injectors. A lot of people like to do 30-pound injectors. I get a lot of those, so that's that. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is if you have a cam that has a lot of overlap, anything over 224 in duration, the O2 sensor is not gonna work very well at idle, and that's why people that build their engines, put a cam in it, and then it's super rich when it's idling. It's because the overlap is too much for the oxygen sensor to work properly. So first thing that I do, I go to my hold on to the minimum coolant temperature for closed loop. What that means is if you max this out to 150 Celsius, that means the car's not gonna, unless it's overheating, it's not gonna get to that temperature, so it'll never reach the temperature to go into closed loop. Closed loop means that it's gonna start reading off the oxygen sensors. So what I do, I disable that, and then it keeps it into the open loop, which is not reading off the O2 sensors. That way you can tune it with your wideband and change your AFR without the oxygen sensor trying to fight you. So that's that. I mean, you keep scrolling down and you'll see fuel cutoff speeds. This is already maxed out. Here's your cutoff for the RPM. So it's actually kind of simple. This is like all the basic stuff the way that I tune. This is how I start, and then you keep going. You go to your tables, and then here you have your spark tables. Right here, this column 100, that's, you know, basically when you're at wide open throttle, anywhere from 90 to 100. So this right here is all by RPM. So basically, you know, 4,000 RPM, a wide open throttle, you're at 33 degrees of timing. And there's the extended table, and this is where the other one left off. And so as you can see, it's very simple. Yeah, all you got to do is, if you, usually what I do, I add 2 degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4. You click the plus sign 4 times, and that's 2 degrees. And I do 2 degrees at a time, and, you know, just add timing until it starts to clatter a little bit, and then I back it off, you know, 1 or 2 degrees. Or if you're gonna spray nitrous, you know, rule of thumb is you gotta do 2 degrees per every 50 shot of nitrous. So that's that. And then right here we have our VE table. All right, this is the part where people get really confused. The VE table, usually it's, if you're just new to tuning, what you can do is you can open up Eehack, and with the car running, what you want to do is look at the where your KPA, which is the map sensor, let's say you're idling at a 800 or 1,000 RPMs, right there. Your map sensor, if the car is stock, you're going to be somewhere in the 35 to 40 kilopascals. So you'll be in this area right here. So the higher the number, the more fuel you're commanding. So let's say you have a wideband and you're idling in anywhere from 800 to 1,000 RPMs, and the car is super rich, is at 12.5. So what you do is you grab these 4 cells right here. Oops, that's 6. 4 right there. And if you're, let's say you're at 12.5, so what I do, I multiply. The goal is to get to 14.7 or 14.2. I don't know how much ethanol is in the fuel that you're using, but here in Texas we have up to 10% of ethanol, so I usually like to run, you know, 14.2 idle instead of 14.7. That's a little lean, but like I said, you have let's say you have you're running 12.5, anywhere between 12.5 to 13 AFR. Let me look for my calculator so you can see what I'm doing. This is the part that's really confusing for a lot of people. Here we go. There's a calculator. So the goal is to make these numbers smaller, and in the percentage to where, like I said, if you're running 12.5 and you want to reach 14.7, what you do is really simple, so pay attention. You are 12.5, it's where your fueling is. You divide that by the goal, which is 14.2, and that tells you that you have to you see this number right here, 0.88. Use the first 2 numbers. So 0.88, that's what you're gonna multiply those numbers by. So you highlight this 4 little squares, and then you go to this right here, that's the to multiply, and you type in 0.88, hit OK, and you see how the numbers went down. That you basically lower the fueling by 12%, because if it was 10%, it would be 0.90, and we went to 0.88, so you're decreasing the fuel by 12%, and that's I mean, that's pretty much it. So it's all about the wideband. If you don't have a wideband, I mean, you can still do the use the narrowband, but there's no way you'll get it as perfect as close as you would if you don't have a wideband. So I suggest you get a wideband, follow these steps, and then whenever you're cruising at idle, you have to have a scanner, you have to have Eehack or something, so where you're data logging and you're looking at where your map is. This right here, the kilopascals speed. If you're on speed density, which is I suggest you put it on speed density the first time that you're tuning, so you can do the VE table first, and then once you get the feeling where you want it, you go back to the tables and the switch, and you put the car back on like if on the mass air, and then you can start modifying the fueling on the mass air. And if you do both the V table and the mass air, the car will be smooth, it'll be responsive. Your master table, it's way down here. You have the first table is primarily for your idle. Um, you can see how smooth it is from factory. If you have a nice curve like this, that means there's not gonna be any like spikes, or like the AFR is not gonna go up or down too drastically. So same thing, if you have your wideband and your fueling is too, let's say it's too lean at idle, what you do is whenever you're on Eehack or scanner or anything, you'll see the mass air table. Here, I'm gonna open this up so you can see what I'm talking about. You're gonna be in data log. I'm not connected to anything right now, so it's not gonna show me the live data. But right here, where it says MAF, that's your MAF. You'll see a number right there, and that number is going to be on this table. So for example, let's say you're running super lean right here at 3.8 grams of air. So what you do is you'll grab this 3.8. Maybe I grab 3 or 4 tables, because you have to scale it so that you don't have real big spikes, or I'll show you what it does on the graph. So let me blow this up right here. So let's say that you're running real lean right here, this section right here. So same thing, you do the percentage thing. So if you're running 15 point something, let's say you're running 16. I'm gonna use whole numbers, that way it's easier to follow. Let's say your car's running 16. Let's see, let me get my calculator open again. Your AFR is a 16, so, and you want it to be, like say 14.2. So you're at 16 AFR. What you do is you divide that by 14.2. It equals, and it's telling you to add 1.12%. Well, in reality, it's only 12%, because the 1, it represents 100, which is just a whole in percentage. So you're adding 12%. If you were subtracting instead of adding, you'd be instead of having a 1, it'd be a 0. So what you do, once again, you go highlight those numbers, multiply 1.12, hit OK, and you see it erased the numbers, so it added fuel. But now this right here, it's this is the spikes that I was talking about. What I would do is grab four numbers again, and since you added you added 12% to those, what I like doing, I mean, this is just, you can guess, you can play with it until you get the perfect AFR to where you want it. But what I would do in this instant, I would probably do 1.10 percent, and then that keeps on smoothing the table. You keep going down, and then I'm gonna grab four numbers again. And this is why no one really likes to tune LT1s. It's because it's a tedious, uh, it's a lot of work. With HP tuners, EFI Live, there's a tool in the software where um, you can smooth the numbers. Uh, it'll smooth them on by itself, but we don't have that with this all technology. So this is kind of what you have to do. So as you can see, I just started decreasing by two, and you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. This is just just to kind of uh, get you started. So now you know how to modify your AFR, which is in reality tuning. It's all about and timing and fuel. If you get the timing where it needs to be, and you get the fueling where it needs to be, everything else, all these tables, I'll get into. I'll get into depth in all of this, but the main, I guess the main thing that you want to do is get your AFR correct, and then your timing. I'll go more into the timing on the next video. I know this is probably going on a little too long, but if you have any questions, just send me a message, and I'll try to help you as much as I can. And I hope I covered enough to where to get you in trouble. And just good luck. Thanks.